This is the 2025 Skoda Elroq, and think of this effectively as an electric Karoq, but actually it's a little bit larger than a Volkswagen ID3, both taller and longer. Now this promises at just over £32,000 starting price to be a really solid entry in the EV market, but I'm going to let you decide. I personally think that it is, but I'm going to take you on a full tour of the car and get it out on the road and see what you think. And if you're looking for one of these on lease, please check my affiliate links in the description below for the best deals. So then, the Elroq, there's quite a few different options to choose from in terms of powertrain and also the trim levels, and I'll run through them very briefly, but it's well worth having a look on the configurator. So it starts off with the 50, which is 168 horsepower model, 8.7 seconds to 60 and around 230 miles of range. Stepping up to the 60 model, if you go to the next trim level, is 201 horsepower with the same torque, 7.7 seconds to 60 and 260 miles of range. And the big step up is to the 85 model, 282 horsepower, 6.4 seconds to 60 and 340 miles of range, so significantly longer range on that one. And then the new range topping VRS model is 335 horsepower, 5.4 seconds to 60 with four-wheel drive and 330 miles of range. The rest of them are rear-wheel drive, which is absolutely fine for this kind of car. Now the entry-level SE model starts from just under 32 grand, and it comes quite generously spec'd with a rear camera, basic cruise control, height adjustable boot floor, 5-inch cockpit screen, LED lights and a 13-inch infotainment display, but no sat-nav on that one. About 2 grand more gets you an SEL model, which I think is probably the sweet spot in the range, because that comes by default with the 60 powertrain, heated seats and steering wheel, drive mode select, front parking sensors and also interior upgrade options. Then there's the Edition at 35,000, which has 19-inch alloys, acoustic side windows, wireless charging, USB-C ports in the rear, keyless entry and adaptive cruise. The Sportline model at £37,000 has paddles for regen adjustment, sportier styling with 20-inch alloys, black exterior detailing, lowered 15mm on sport suspension and also sports seats. And then of course the VRS is the range topping model, 46 grand, so that's a massive jump up, but that one has four-wheel drive and dynamic chassis control and so on. There's a couple of key packs that you can buy as well. There's the transport pack for £250, which comes with lots of useful netting and pockets for the rear, the winter pack for £600, which has heated windscreen and heated rear seats. It's worth noting though that heat pump is £1,100 extra across the board. But yeah, let's have a little look around the exterior of the Elroq. Now I quite like this new design language they've gone for. They call it modern solid, and this is the first car of the range to really experience it, and this has now been transported over to its larger brother, the Enyaq, as well. You can see that it's kind of got this squared off front end, which is quite Skoda still, I think, in styling, especially with the badging, but it's also quite plain. And I think really the only dead giveaway that this is an electric car is this front styling, the fact that there's not really any upper grills. You can see it's all kind of just squared off, and I quite like it. Now the only thing to bear in mind is that the main lights are in this cluster down here. On this one it's not got the matrix LEDs, it's just got the basic LEDs, and then your daytime running lights and indicators are above it, which I think is still quite a nice design. It's quite sleek, it's quite basic, but also it's not too offensive. I think people that are a bit scared or put off by something like a Cupra Born or something like a Kia EV3 will find that this is a much safer design. It's got that kind of side profile of the minivan, and that means it's nice and practical in terms of the rear area, including lots of headroom in the back and a decent sized cargo area. And at the back you've got some kind of design styling cues like these little vents here, which aren't real unfortunately, but they do add a nice little element of width to the back of the car. And of course you've got some kind of like fake diffusery stuff down the bottom. There's no need for any exhaust being a full EV, but I do like the sharp angular lighting setup. I do think it looks good, and also it just is very reminiscent of some of the older Skoda designs that we know and love. They've not strayed too far from what they know. However, it definitely does look like a new design era for Skoda, especially when it comes to not only the interior but also that front edge as well. I do also quite like this little kind of side fin grille they've got going on here. It serves no purpose once again, but just looks pretty cool. And you've got some very basic wheels on this one. This is literally the entry-level model, the SE, so there's nothing too fancy going on here, and it does make it look a bit plain. But I do like this optional black magic pearl paint, which I think is around £700. There are some kind of cheaper options out there, but this one does really pop in the sun, which unfortunately you can't see now because of this awful weather that I'm having today. But overall, quite an inoffensive and easy to look at design, and definitely won't put a lot of people off. So stepping inside the interior, the one thing that this doesn't have, annoyingly, it still has the indent for keyless entry, but this one doesn't have it, so you have to unlock it on the key, which is a little bit frustrating because the interior isn't operated by the button. The button is there as a manual override. The car automatically switches on when you get in, and it uses a pressure sensor in the seat to automatically switch off when you get out. So it's a little bit frustrating that you have to manually fumble for the key in these entry-level options. You can see in this entry-level model, we've got this kind of fabric on the doors here and this nice accent with what I think is a really cool design for the door handle, which is nice. You've got kind of like a perforated golf ball type insert there, which has the speakers in the rear, and you've got this kind of slightly naff plastic handle, but it does the job and it's quite sturdy, and your standard Volkswagen Audi Group switches, and a large section for a bottle, which you can see is kind of has its own floor there, and then a little section in the back as well. Nice and practical. And then as we get in, we do have a manual adjustment seat in this one, but they are quite nicely designed. Have a little look at that. You've got this kind of not quite green, but this kind of off yellowy green stitching, which I do really like as a contrast. And you do have a manual lumbar adjustment on this as well, so at least there is some adjustment in terms of that, the way that looks. And you do have a sort of central storage area under the center console as well, and everything does feel fairly kind of solid in here, I would say, for this class of car. And one thing I would say is that this is, I think, a cut above some of the other Volkswagen Audi Group stuff at the moment. I think this feels nicer quality than the equivalent Volkswagen. So stepping inside then, let's have a little closer look at the way this works. As you can see, the car has come on automatically as I've sat down, which means that I don't have to interact with the start-stop button on the side there at all. You've got this kind of weird two-prong steering wheel now, which I am quite a fan of, to be fair. It feels good and the controls are quite useful. You've got like a volume wheel here, and you can control your track skip and your voice activation. And then on the right hand side, you've got a shortcut button for cruise control, and you've also got these buttons here which control this screen in front. So let me just put my foot on the brake to wake the car up properly, and you can see that this little screen springs into life. Now this is the sort of display that I would quite appreciate on something like a Tesla, for example, because it's quite simple, quite straightforward, but it shows you everything that you might need. So you can see if I adjust on the steering wheel, I'm literally just going to be using these two buttons to flick backwards and forwards, and you can just move to the side or to the right. So you can see the left hand side normally shows like a Tesla style display that shows your lane keep assist and all that kind of thing. Then the one on the right shows information such as your current economy and such like that. It's pretty basic, but it gives you enough information about what's going on, and it also will show you whether you're regen braking or whether you're accelerating, and your basic information about your traffic sign recognition as well. And then you've got this large central infotainment display here, which has got much better in recent times on all of the Volkswagen Audi Group stuff. So you've got shortcuts at the top here, which would normally have your drive mode select as well. Like I said, this one doesn't have that, unfortunately, but you do have shortcuts for your traffic sign recognition, and this one also doesn't have the nav, but you can go to the home screen and you normally have your Apple CarPlay here or full screen. You've also then got your charging information, which you can then choose locations and optimizations to do. It's all quite slick and works quite well. As you can tell, it's actually relatively like quick and easy to use now. The one thing I would say though is that sort of Kia and Hyundai do have a bit of a better system in terms of extra features and things like that. This is more basic. However, you do have all the adjustments you might need. The standard stereo is pretty good, and I've got some EQ adjustment on it here. And as you can see, all the animations are good as well. And your climate controls, it is unfortunately all done through this screen, but there is a button for on and off just at the top left. There is a volume slider here. This is a touch panel, but it'd just be nice to have something similar for the climate controls like they do in Volkswagens and stuff like that. Or like I said, just an on-off button would be fine. But as you can see, you do have some toggle switches down here. So you've got the demist ones, you've got the climate control, you've got your central lock-in, hazards, blank switches. These would be for features in the higher end models. And thankfully, a one-click driver assist feature. So you click on that, and that's an easy shortcut to turn off things like the speed warning, which is something that people really appreciate having a shortcut to. So I'm glad there's a physical button for that. Otherwise, there are other practicalities in here. I forgot to show you as well. Of course, the staple in any Skoda, you do have in the door, ta-da, the umbrella. But yeah, as you heard there, the car did switch itself off as I got out, so you can see now it comes back on when I come in and put my foot on the brake. So it's really quite straightforward, but it does feel a little bit clunky without keyless entry, I have to say. But overall, you do have some good cubbies in here. You've got a nice cubby space down there with some non-slip mats in. You do have a big area here as well. You've got a little toggle for drive mode select, so you've got your reverse, neutral, drive, and also your regen braking mode, and just a simple parking brake. And you can also remove this area that's supposed to be your cup holders if you wanted to store something else there. You've got a charging pad here with an adapter for USB-C and USB-A. Ergonomics and visibility are pretty good. There is a large C pillar, as you can probably see there, but you do have blind spot monitors on the side of the mirrors. They're literally hidden just on the side there, and they glow orange when there's a blind spot, something in your blind spot. There is also a nifty little section there to put a parking ticket in. It's a bit antiquated now, like not many people need to use that, but it's nice that they include it as standard. And and you've got just your automatic light switch down here. One thing I will say though is that the stalks, so like your indicator stalk for example, and your cruise control for this basic cruise control version is the old Volkswagen Audi Group stuff. It's like the same as it was 10-15 years ago, so just bear that in mind. That's something that's probably used to cut corners. And it is a shame that this doesn't have like your one touch on the steering wheel steering assist like things like Kias and Hyundais. That is a bit of a missed opportunity, as well as no paddles for the regen braking apart from on the Sportline model. But you know, I'm kind of being picky there. Another drawback, unfortunately, is in the right-hand drive model, you can see the fuse boxes over there. So you get this pony little glove box, which is absolutely rubbish. On the left-hand drive models, you get a full-size glove box. It's just because they couldn't be bothered to move that fuse box, which I understand, cutting corners and that kind of thing, but it's just something to bear in mind. And then we do have a adjustable high armrest in the middle here with, again, like a nice little pull-out cubby, which you can use. And this is really deep as well. There's loads and loads of room in there. And you can kind of obviously add this little shelf in as well, and then adjust this to whatever height you want, which is nice. I really do like this design on the doors as well, in terms of the door handle in this perforated area, and I do like the carpeting on like the dash and the doors in this, and the seats the way they are. For a standard model car, I do think that this all does look and feel quite premium, and overall I'm pretty impressed with how comfortable these seats are as well, and the adjustment of them. I've been doing some quite long drives and it feels absolutely fine to me. And the seat belts do also have an auto tensioner on as standard. I do really like the driving position in here as well. I can get my elbows nice and comfortable, and I feel like I can sit up really straight without any interference from the seat. I would have this as my office chair. You can't see it in this light either, but there is ambient lighting that runs all the way along the bottom of the dash trim and the doors, which you can adjust as well, which does look really nice at night. I would say you're probably going to get only better interior quality from something like a Peugeot 3008, just because that's, you know, slightly more interesting, slightly more modern. But if you're used to an older car, this is a really nice step up. And of course you've got different options for the interior trim as well, so this isn't default across the range. You can get extra leather and stuff like that. Don't expect it to knock your socks off in comparison to the Kia EV3 in terms of wacky sustainable materials. And I just want to demonstrate again, without turning anything off, the car will know when I'm leaving as I get out. You have your charge port on the rear of the car here, and if we head into the back, you can see you've got a nice steep slope on these chairs, which makes for a nice bit of thigh support, and you've got your basic door situation back here. You've got some quite deep door pockets and a nice flat floor back here, which means that it is nice for your legs. No USB charging in this one. You have to step up to the higher end models for that, and for triple zone climate control, but you do get some more practicalities. So you've got a pocket here in the back of the seat, but you also have a shallow pocket here, which would be useful for something like a phone or something like that. And you do also have Isofix covers back here as well, which are the folding kind. So these are actually attached, which I think is quite nice, because I don't like the ones that you can pull off and lose. So even though these don't look as good as the ones you squidge between the seat, these are more practical. So thumbs up for that. And also you do have in the center for some reason there's no like hook to pull this down, which I think is a bit of an oversight, but you've got an armrest with some kind of slightly naff cup holders, which they do the trick, but they're just not particularly nicely designed. But this is also a ski hatch as well, so you can put this down if you wanted to pass through larger items from the boot, which is handy. Now don't expect anything too fancy back here in terms of the rear passenger area, but what you do get is a really nice well-rounded space, and actually quite cavernous for this class of car and this size of car. Back here is a pretty much identical experience to in the larger Big Brother Enyaq, which is really impressive. I've got this seat in front of me set up in my driving position as 6 foot, and you can see I've got tons and tons of knee room and space to stretch out my legs. And this kind of steep slope on the seat means that actually I've almost got a bit of thigh support there, even with my long lanky legs, which is really impressive. One of the better cars I've sat in of any size, really, to be honest. I've got a bit of an armrest, and of course you do have a middle armrest here, which is a bit tricky to pull down. With everything extended out, I could really find myself having a comfortable time back here. Headroom, really, really good as well. I've got tons of headroom at 6 foot, and I don't find any issues with the seating experience back here. And pretty much a flat floor as well, so even middle passengers, whilst this is a little bit narrow, will be pretty happy there. Just don't expect there to be loads of adjustment in these seats like in some larger rivals, things like, you know, tilt and slide and that kind of thing. But in this particular situation, I don't think it's necessary. So no power tailgate on this one, but we do just have a simple button to open the boot. And as you can see, we do have quite a practical space in here. There is a bit of a load lip, as you can see, but you can see there is a little bit of space under there just for kind of like a charging cable or something like that. And then you've also got a bag here for the charging cable, which is actually hooked onto this tie hook so it doesn't roll around, which is quite a nice touch. And then you've got a side pocket here, which is removable. And then the same for this one here. You've got a nice tray here. You've also got this kind of, I guess, pouch you can put stuff in. You can adjust that as well. And there's also some pull down tie hooks, lots of really practical little things in here. And there's also here, I think this is a divider. Yeah, this is like a divider with Velcro on it, so you can kind of section off bits of the boot floor, which is pretty cool. Lots of really cool and useful bits that you can see back here. There's also netting on the underside of the parcel shelf here. So you can see there that that's got a rating of 3 kilos, and you can remove that parcel shelf as well to get more space by putting the rear seats down. It's quite simple to do. You've just got little hooks on each side, nothing too complex, and then the whole thing just comes out like so. You just give it a tug and you're away. And once you're into the back of the car, like I said, you've got simple controls. You can lean in and you can push the rear bench down if you want to. There's also that ski hatch as well, which is super useful. And they do fold kind of flat, but you also do have a large lip back there as well, so it's not an entirely flat floor in this particular model, and you can see that that would be quite difficult to load certain larger objects. That's just something to consider if you're looking at using this to transport larger items. But again, it's not a particularly long car, so you're not going to get a wardrobe in there or anything like that, but it's just something to bear in mind. But it is easy to put these back up, and they don't snag on the seat belts, which is always a nice touch. But again, I do just really appreciate back here having little shelves and also like the pull down hooks and stuff like that. I just think it's a really useful thing to have in a car like this, especially if you've got shopping bags and little odds and sods you don't want knocking around. There's even a strap here, really practical. Right, so with that out of the way, let's take this thing for a spin. So let's get cracking and do a 0 to 60 pull in the Elroq. Now, this being the, I guess, slowest model, actually it pulls pretty well, and there is 60 now, so it will do it in 8.7 seconds, which really isn't too bad for your day-to-day driving. It's only at kind of speed like motorway cruising where you feel like it doesn't have much legs. I think part of the benefit of that is the rear-wheel drive system in this car. It does feel like it's really pushing you along, and it never really feels like it's coming unstuck. So it's only realistically in those top-end variants that offer four-wheel drive that you'd really need it. I've just been poodling along in traffic in this thing, and I would prefer if it did have a one-pedal drive option, even in the harsher B mode instead of drive, that has the more efficient regen braking. Yes, it does slow you down a lot faster, but there is no complete stop, so you do need to use 2 pedals. And it's not got the paddles on this model, it's only on the sport line that that's available, which is a bit of a shame and a missed opportunity, I think. I kind of see why they've done it, but I think that should be standard across the range, as it is in things like Kias, like the EV3, and also the Megane, and all that kind of thing. It just makes sense to have that availability, and also some key rivals do offer that one pedal drive as an option as well. In terms of interior refinement overall though, I would say that it is really strong. There's not much of the chassis sound transferred to the cabin, so when I go over bumps and stuff, it's not very crashy in here in terms of the noise. The only thing that I would say is that the acoustic glass on the Edition and above models is definitely going to make a difference, because I can hear some road noise through here, but everything else feels really solid and sturdy. And actually, in terms of overall material quality, like I mentioned before, I think this is a cut above some of the other stuff in Volkswagen Audi Group at the moment. Again, this being the base model, there's no drive mode select for me to choose from, so I can't sharpen the steering or anything like that. But what I am going to do is send it round a roundabout and then go down some more twisty roads to see what it's made of, even in this standard configuration. So I've got traction control on. It's quite slippery out at the moment. Oh, there we go, there goes the back end. So you do get a bit of rear wheel drive fun there. But yeah, very controlled, the traction does a great job, and it never really comes unstuck in normal conditions. And I can feel the car being propelled nicely. It's only when you get up to sort of 50 mph plus that this bottom end model feels a little bit sluggish, but aside from that, you'd be absolutely fine. I do think though that SEL 60 model is probably the sweet spot, because it's less than £2,000 more, but it comes with like heated seats, heated steering wheel, that drive mode select, around 30 horsepower more and around 30 miles more range. So it's a bit of a no-brainer really. See, I'm on some more twisty roads now, and it's very compliant over these bumps. Like I mentioned before, I don't really get the sense that the car's crashing over any of the imperfections. It really irons stuff out quite well, but in a way that doesn't feel too soft either. I'm really thoroughly impressed with how the chassis feels in terms of the suspension and just the ride quality overall. And yeah, pushing on down a country road like this, I do feel a little bit of steering delay input, and I do feel a little bit of kind of body roll, but it's not anywhere near as bad as you might expect from a car of this size. It really is an ideal size, I think, for a lot of people, just ever so slightly larger than an ID3, and definitely not too big that you can't handle it if you're not looking for an SUV. Sporty it isn't, but if you had the DCC or you went for the VRS version, which granted is much more expensive, you could probably still have quite a bit of fun with it. But even without, I feel like this is absolutely fine. It's by no means I would call fun, but it definitely inspires confidence in the turns, and there's enough steering feel for me to be confident in knowing where the tyres are and what's going on with the car and where the weight of the car is. And talking of, you can feel that the centre of gravity is fairly low down, but not in a way that I've felt in other cars. Things like a Ioniq 5 or an Ioniq 6 feel like they're almost like a bit of a skateboard because they're really low down, but this kind of feels a little bit more evenly weighted, I guess, which makes it a bit less fun and agile, but at the same time probably makes it a little bit more supple and a little bit more livable day to day. One thing I can't say I'm keen on though is the brakes. They are quite spongy, and also there's quite a bit of travel on the pedal, and the worst bit about it is it does feel like there's quite a lot of progression necessary before you actually come to a stop. They're not very sharp at all. Like, even if I give them a really thorough stab, I feel like the car's really struggling. You can hear my stuff rolling around, but the car's still not coming to a proper stop. So yeah, it's not the best in terms of braking, which again contributes to the fact that this would make a really nice daily driver, but not so much for a sporty drive. But at this price point, I think this drive is really good. When you're driving it normally in the normal drive mode, it feels pretty much like a normal car in terms of engine braking. There's not much engine braking really. And when you put it into the B mode, that's when the engine braking, or sorry, the motor braking kind of really kicks in, the regen. And you do feel then like it's a bit more of a traditional EV, but it's just a shame that there's no one pedal drive and there's no adjustment in this particular model. I do also think it's a little bit cheeky that a heat pump is £1,100 extra. Again, a lot of rivals are starting to include that, at least in their top trim, so it's something to consider. But this definitely is something for, if you've looked at a Kia EV3 and you thought, that looks like a great car, but it's a little bit too funky for me, then this is definitely along the same sort of lines really, but just in a more traditional package. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that Skoda have really done a massive improvement over the last few years to all of their design, both exterior and interior. This new design language still looks and feels Skoda, but it's definitely a little bit more recognisable as a modern car. And also this interior, it's just really nice quality. It's definitely a lot better than even the previous generations, and I would say probably better than most Volkswagen stuff at the moment too. I've also recently driven the ENQUIRIES, which is just the slightly larger brother of this, and I thought that was fantastic too. So then, the Skoda Elroq, definitely one to consider in my opinion. And if you want to see my videos on key rivals such as the Kia EV3, then do check them out on my channel. And if you're after a lease on one of these, please check out my links in the description below. But I definitely think that this is a strong contender in this segment, and I would be happy driving one of these day to day. So thank you to Skoda for sending me out the car. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to you guys for watching, all your likes, comments, subscriptions. It does mean a lot and it really makes a difference. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.